golf was my life, and I didn't want to give it up. So I went to work.
And remember the name, for at just 9 years of age, Rory McIlroy from Hollywood is following in the steps of his golfing hero, Tiger Woods.
Oh my goodness! Oh, wow! In your life have you seen anything like that?
I've noticed certainly a common theme in these podcasts, interviewing the top performers in the field of golf. And that theme is everyone is so specific and detailed about how they go about their business. And I want to introduce you to a gentleman called Matt Perry. Matt is from Hamilton, New Zealand. And in 2016, I was very fortunate enough to caddy for Matt on the European Tour in Spain. I was so impressed by Matt and how he handled himself and went about his business. It was a no-brainer for me to get him on here and shed some light about how he goes about his business with you guys. The extent that Matt will go to prepare himself for each tournament is truly remarkable, and I'm not going to give too much away on this one other than do not skip this episode. If you are looking to unleash your greatness, this is truly a fantastic episode filled with many wonderful insights from a top performer in the field of golf. It's an absolute perler. Enjoy. Matt Perry, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, not a problem. So we first met as I was kindly introduced you by a gentleman called Laurie Cantor, who's on the European Tour, and I first met you over in Spain as lucky enough to be your caddy. And one thing that really struck me was how good you were implementing processes throughout before your game, during your game, and after your game. So what I wanted to sort of start off with was digging into perhaps some of the processes you were implementing before a competitive round.
Yep.
In this case, what I saw was at the European Tour School final, and what that looks like. So maybe perhaps start off with you're teeing off at 8 o'clock. What are the first things you do upon wakening?
So I was sort of planning my weeks actually going back on a Sunday night, and I have a little sort of sheet that I prepare with the 7 days, and obviously our golf is Thursday through Sunday, and if it's a new course, then there's a little more work to do with a bit more research and things like that. But I basically keep the same structure, and Sunday night and most of Monday is normally travel, so I'll get that out of the way, and then it's really getting used to the course and conditions and things, and I guess trying to make the course for that week feel like you're playing at your home course. So you're trying to gather, I guess, a lifetime's information in the space of a couple of days so that you're ready to go and you're comfortable. But it sounds like a big job, but there's a lot of things you can do and use, and the yardage books and caddies and things like that to gain knowledge, go to the greenkeeper's shed and things. But in terms of what I do from an hour onwards, I like to wake up and sort of get a bit of a meditation session going so that it starts my mind and attitude off on the right path, and I'll always be awake.
What is your meditation process? What do you use for that?
So it's just sort of find a quiet place, and I've been using an app called Headspace for quite a time now, and it basically, prior to using it, I didn't understand anything about it other than it was sort of a bit of reflection and very quiet and you use some breathing techniques. But that app's taught me a lot about what to sort of do and how to quieten the mind and things and prepare and breathe, and it basically just talks you through it in a little 10-minute session, and it becomes habit, and you sort of notice how much of an impact it has on your attitude and frame of mind when you're doing it in routine. So that's been a real asset to my preparation. And then from there, you're obviously wanting to put fuel in the tank, so that's a lot of hydration, and of course food. And then
What kind of food will you eat for breakfast? I know we were stealing all of the sandwiches and everything that was offered in the hotel.
Yeah, and then I guess it's you're wanting to think about, you've got the best part of 10 kilometres to walk or 6 miles, so you're going to need pretty full tank. So I just normally have 2 or 3 poached eggs and toast, and then get some fruit in there as well. And it's not a religious sort of repetition of food. It's just what's good for you and what's bad. So it's just trying to have as much good stuff as you can. And
were you coffee or no coffee?
no, I don't drink coffee. So I've never really thought about drinking it ever. So it's just one of those things. Some people drink it, some people rely on it, but to me, I don't need it. I mean, I wake up bright enough each day, so that's good enough for me. And then one thing I try and do with my hydration is I try and force myself to have to go to the toilet throughout the whole day. So often conditions will change during a day, or if you're in Asia, it's really humid, or just you can get caught out. And if you haven't hydrated early, then you're basically wasting your time sculling water or Powerade or whatever you decided to drink on course. So that's really important. I'll try and get myself to go to the toilet as often as I can.
It wasn't just water you drank, was it? You had something else as well.
Yeah, I've started to use a product called Hydrolyte, which is like a medicinal hydration drink, and it's through a friend really that I'd heard of it before and used it at times that I'd been really sick overseas, and it had worked wonders then. And this is just their sport range to basically replace everything you need. And because it's a medicinal product, it's doctors are recognizing it and handing it out. So it's really good just to throw in the mix and mix it up a bit from water every now and then. So that works really well.
And then after breakfast, do you head straight to the course, or do you come back to the hotel room?
It just depends really on what tea times I have, and obviously if you're at a hotel, there's only certain hours for breakfast, so that you've really got to plan around different aspects of your day. So I'll always include meditation, but it's also stretching and warming up. The number one goal really is to arrive to the first tee feeling like you've already played, half a dozen holes, so that
right.
If you need to hit a certain shot that's near the maximum of your potential, say a carry over water, or there's a short par 4 to start, and your tactic for that day is to drive the green, then you need to be physically, mentally ready to drive the green. You don't want to have to wait 6 holes to find third, fourth, and fifth gear, so to speak. So everything I do is really aimed around getting to that first tee and being able to give it 100%, really.
So do you do the stretching and meditation together? Is that before or after breakfast?
If it was up to me, I'd get breakfast out of the way first, and then that gives me a bit more balance. So if I was to do stretching and meditation before breakfast, it's sort of making the whole day a bit longer, so to speak. Whereas if I'm at breakfast with a caddy or a friend or other players, I'm not really thinking about golf. It's relaxing. So I'll get breakfast and hydration out of the way, and then there might be a bit of downtime until I have that sort of 90-minute window before I'll start meditation and the warm up. And then often there's transportation or a drive to the course, and other times you're on course, so you've got to factor in that as well. But basically, from the start of my golf day, in terms of warming up and things, it's 90 minutes before my tee time, and I'd start with the meditation, then go straight into warming up, and then you'd go. I like to putt first, purely just to get the feel and speed, not really worrying about holding it. And that might only take 4 putts, it might take 10, but it's just sort of a thing I've always done. And then I'll go to the range and basically just start with lob wedge or sand wedge, and just sort of pitch to random balls or flags on the course, on the driving range, sorry, and work my way up from there. And just once I've got a feel for things and I'm happy with, the move and the swing and how things are going, then I'll start to incorporate shot shapes and trying to hit shots and keep it low or hit it higher, and then basically changing up every ball so that you're replicating golf on the course rather than just grabbing a 6-iron and hitting 20 balls at one flag and them all being, high draws.
So those first few balls on the range, what is your thought process? You working on things, you're just trying to get a feel for what it feels like on the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just basically get them to get sort of contact and the feel of, the ball hitting the face and the feeling through the hands and how I'm feeling physically, and then I would sort of start again with a more routine warm up in terms of like a bit of calibration with my setup and making sure everything's pretty well aligned and posture's really good. And then from there, once I've sort of chipped and pitched, half a dozen or a dozen balls and done the calibration to check things, then I'm pretty much into it and hitting full pitch shots and then full sand wedges, and then I tend to go up every second club. Some days it's odd, some days it's evens, but basically go through the bag of irons and then go into hybrids or 3-woods, drivers, etc., and then just finish with a few, just sort of how I started, with a few sort of pitch shots at targets and things, and trying to go full circle really, so that I've still got that feel element to it.
If the ball's not coming off the club face how intended, they're going everywhere, is there any particular fixes, or is there a routine that you perhaps go through again to fix that?
Not really. I mean, it kind of depends what would be making it go all over the show. If it's sort of a physical thing, then sometimes you just got to suck it up and say, look, I'm going to play with a big fade today, and there's going to be holes where I need to hit a draw, or the fade's not going to suit, but just, suck it up and say, look, that's me today. I'm going to hit a fade and we can deal with it later after the round. And then there's other times where, everyone has bad habits, so I'll slip into a few bad habits, and if I've got someone on hand or the use of, say, a mirror or something, I'll just go over to the side of the pro shop or clubhouse and just check a few little basics that I always have to calibrate with, and then generally it irons out fairly quickly, and you get back into those sort of natural feels and habits, I guess.
Does any of the pre-shot routine, how do you let that carry into the performance of a competitive round?
So I actually, once I've sort of chipped and pitched to warm up, every single shot will be a full routine. So I'm basically replicating what I'm doing on the course, and that just, again, it gets me in that zone of being ready to go on the first tee. So I don't want to have the first routine of the day on the first tee. I want to have done 30, 40, 50, on the putting green, chipping in the bunkers, and then on the range. So I'm always really strict on that in terms of, standing behind the ball and walking into it, addressing it, looking back at the target, and then as soon as my eyes have left the target, back to the ball, I pull the trigger, so that's a constant, because it's your routine that gets you through those tight, tense moments. Your routine and basically takes over. Once you've figured out what club to hit and what shot, then you're in. It's the easiest way to get into the zone, basically, just to keep repeating your routine.
The other thing I was going to pick up on was your practice rounds and your attention to detail on everything. You mentioned earlier about you went to sort of the greenkeepers, and can you sort of touch base on that and the attention to detail?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been one to gather as much information that I think would be important to help me to reduce errors or avoid making mistakes. So obviously, if you're playing your home course, you know that, say, in April, the conditions might be soft underfoot, so the ball doesn't roll as far, or the greens might be soft, so it spins back. But if I'm arriving to a new course, I don't know these conditions. And with tournament golf, the course will be very different on a Monday to a Thursday, and again on a Sunday. So getting the information out of the greenkeeper or the superintendent, it can be very valuable come Sunday afternoon when things have firmed up or the greens are quicker. So
what sort of questions would you ask them?
I'd go ahead and just introduce myself, and then just get a bit of background on what the weather's been doing, how their preparation is, and they're very good. They're really honest. They'll say, "Oh, look, we're getting there," or that it's not quite where we want it, but we're hoping that the sun's coming, it's going to firm up come Thursday. So, and then I'll talk about green speed and basically just get as much info from them so I can start to build a picture of the course. And also talking to, every club has one of those members that plays 3 or 4 times a week and plays near scratch and knows the place like the back of their hand. So even getting in touch with a pro shop a few weeks out and saying, "Oh, look, is there a member that is keen to have a round that knows the course well?" That can be invaluable. You look at the Masters recently with a guy called Jeff Knox, who's the official scorer, and often players will seek his company for a round or a practice round, a few weeks out from Augusta, and they'll pick his brains. And he's a guy that's played, 20 or 30 Masters events, but no one really knows about him. But the pros, often that's the first person they'll go to at Augusta because he's there all the time, So those little things can help you on course. And it's funny when they pop up too, you might be under a bit of pressure or something, and you suddenly think, "Oh, that's right, the greens are firm, so I don't have to hit this kind of shot. I can just land it short and it's going to trickle on." And that takes out all the danger of trouble over the back or whatever. And you just kind of try and build a picture of how the course is going to play, and that's always what I've done really, and it's put me in good sort of stead throughout my career.
With all this information you're gathering, are you just storing it in your head, or were you writing it down?
No, I pretty much just store it in my head, and I just help it. It sort of helps for me to paint a picture of how things are going to be. I don't go and live by it. All the information I get, I still trust gut instinct and my knowledge to have sort of final say, but it sort of helps eliminate a lot of options. So basically you're left with fewer options as to how to play shots and how to play the course. So it's really just those 1% things that all add up come Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Absolutely. What sort of things do you look out for on the golf course? Is it like sides to play on the fairways, angles to attack on the greens?
Yeah, so I'm pretty thorough when it comes to my practice rounds. I'll often split the course in two and just play 2 lots of 9 holes if I'm tired and things. But I'll basically play the course as I see it, how it looks, and off the yardage book, and often play more club than what I need off tees, or if there's any indecision, I'll take more club, and you can always go backwards.
I say, why do you always take more club?
Well, say for instance you've got, a par four where there's a few options, and you hit driver up near the neck of the green. When you get up there, you think, oh, hang on, there's a hazard there, or there's a deep bunker or thick rough that's not so easily seen on the yardage book. You can always drop a ball as you're walking up, but if you're going the other way, you can't really hit a 5-iron off the tee to the first layup zone and then go, oh, hang on, there's a big open area up there. I can hit driver up there. Well, you don't really know where driver's going to go.
Right, so you work backwards from.
Yeah, and then I'll do that, and often holes are straightforward, and then other times it's you need a few different shots sort of to figure out how to play it, the percentage sort of option. But if I'm still unsure, I'll often play out the hole and then stand on the back of the green and look back to the tee and then almost play it in reverse. So say it's an undulating green and you need to be accurate, then it helps to be that little bit closer, or give yourself a yardage that's you're very comfortable with. And then if you can hit it into that zone, say it's a 9-iron and you hit it 135, then you'll say, well, where's that going to leave me back on the fairway, and then what club do I need off the tee to get to that 135 yardage? So you can use that time and course mapping to your strengths, which is a thing that Tiger did really well with his layups and stingers and irons and things. So you kind of you're getting used to the course, but you're also trying to navigate it in your best way. If there's a hole that you're not comfortable with and other guys are hitting driver with your practice round and you don't like the look of it, then just play it to your strengths and lay up, and vice versa. If everyone else is laying up and you see a shot, then you're really comfortable with it, then you're playing it, not them. So just trust your gut and take driver and go for it. So it's really about tailor making the practice rounds and all that knowledge to suit your game and how you're going to play it.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect example is that I can't remember which hole it was, but there was, trying to create a picture for the listeners, there was a very tight hole where in Spain in the final tour qualifying round, where you had to slam a freeward sort of 270, 280 down the middle and leave yourself a chip shot over water to a green. And I don't think you sort of really saw that shot all week. And then we decided to take it over on the other fairway, 150 yards to the right.
Yeah.
And then pitch across to maybe give a better angle into the hole, which is...
Yeah, that's right. And that was the other hole we were hitting onto was a par 5, which we'd played the hole before, and you could sort of sense, looking over to the other players as we were walking up the hole, that they were all wondering what to do and how to play the hole because of an elevated tee shot with some really tall pine trees. It made it narrow, sort of a lot more narrow than it seemed, and played a lot trickier. So I was sort of thinking along the lines of a percentage shot and making it as easy as you can, really, for the week, because especially at a Q school when you're under pressure, you don't want to put yourself in too many areas where you're really uncomfortable. You want to try and keep as stress-free as possible, so that's playing to your strengths, and that was an option that I saw, and even to the point where we were playing in the practice round and guys were coming up going, oh, is that the way to play it?
Yeah, they were sort of, they didn't even look for that option. I think you were the only player that was, you saw a possible option, and you were thinking, an alternative route, which I don't think many people would consider. But yeah, no, it was certainly interesting. I will certainly touch on Q School in a bit. Your green reading is probably the most fascinating, and even the green, what was that book called?
Well, the reason sort of behind all this is I learned aim point about 6-7 years ago, and I was always a fairly good reader of greens, but I sort of
And what for those people who don't know, I think we saw Justin Rose doing at the Masters. What is aim point?
So the aim point's basically just it's a mathematical equation to calculate break. So you take into consideration the slope of the green, the angle to that slope that you're putting from, and the distance from the hole. So those three measurements combined will calculate break. And there's obviously outside circumstances like wind and undulating greens or this green surface, but it basically eliminates, the first thing it does is it eliminates a big misread. And then secondly, it makes, if you do miss a putt, you're missing it a lot closer. So your 3 putts are basically eliminated as long as your speed is relatively good. So straight away, without holing any more putts, you're actually having less putts because of those 2 factors. So when I learnt aim point, I adapted to it straight away and really improved my putting. And since then, I've sort of developed my own sort of way of doing it. And I think that's the key thing with aim point is you've really got to understand how it works, and then you sort of tailor it to yourself. And at times you're going to use it. And you obviously saw Justin Rose holding his fingers up, and that's aim point express. And then other guys use the chart that they put out. But to me, it makes perfect sense to measure the greens and eliminate, any sort of uncertainty on a putt. So what I do is I carry a little spirit level or digital level with me on my practice rounds, and if the green books are really thorough, then I'll double check all the measurements. But if there's nothing in them, then I'll do my own. So I just use the grid on the yardage books every 5 yards, and then do a little cross-reference as to where the straight line is and at what percentage. And percentage is basically another measurement other than degrees of slope. So percentage is just the rise over the run, basically, just like if you're building a ramp in a building site, they'd have a percentage of slope. And basically any putt that's under the hole is going to break a lot less than above the hole because the ball's travelling a lot slower. So then it comes into course management and leaving the ball under the hole, and avoiding stressful situations where you've got a downhill left to right putt on greens that are running 11 or 12 on the stimp. So it's all those 1% things that add up that help. And some guys, they think it's too much work. Other guys think it's going to mess with their brains on the course. Other guys don't understand it, but it's certainly gained a lot of popularity since it's come on tour, and people have had a lot of success with it. So it's just another tool really on the tour, and people use it and people don't. People berate it and say it doesn't work, and then other people swear by it. So
that attention to detail, where I think the average club golfer, you would never find him at his home club with a sort of measuring line and out there measuring the greens and writing them down. But it is the attention to detail, as you said, all the low 1% that add up.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was playing with a friend's mother a while ago, and we're all out on course, and I was feeling the slope of the green during a putt, and she came over and said to me, "Oh, I've always done that, and I've started to see it on TV more." And my boys, they were laughing at me when when I used to do that back in the day, but obviously it works. And they both turned around and said, "Mum, you're actually a really good putter." And the thing with that and feeling it through your feet is your feet will always find that point of balance. So your feet basically don't lie to you, whereas your eyes do. You can look at a putt from one way and see something, and then you go on the other side and it looks the opposite, and you're like, well, how can that be? But if you get in there with your feet and walk it, and really
is that part of aim point? Is that so? If someone's got a 20-foot putt, what do they do?
It's basically down to the person, but the sort of basic thing is the middle third of a putt is where the ball starts to break. Obviously, when you've hit it, it's travelling pretty fast and the slope isn't having much impact. But as the ball slows in the middle third of the putt, that's when gravity really takes hold and curves the ball onto its, course towards the lowest point. And then the last third of the putt is where it's basically turned, it's lost momentum and it's just falling down to what we call the fall line, or if you're tipping a bucket of water, where would the water go? And that's to the lowest point. So we get into the middle third of the putt, and generally you stand on the lower side. So if you had, say, a right to left putt, you'd stand on the left side of the line, and then you feel with your feet.
Do you lean back or lean into
You can. What you sort of are looking for is where the weight is going in your feet. So if it's going up on your toes or back into your heels, then that'll dictate uphill or downhill, obviously. And you can sort of figure out if your ball's just below perpendicular, then you're going to have slightly uphill. And then if it's above, then it's slightly downhill. So there's obviously instructional videos and things online. So there's more in depth.
I'll find some information.
Explanations
put
there.
That in there, yeah.
But to me, it's really simple. I mean, as I said, if you're going to tip a bucket of water on the green, where would that water run to? And basically, that's what's making the putt turn. You can't make the putt break. You're only ever hitting a straight putt, and then from that, the ball will curve according to the gradient. So that sort of raises another point too, is that every putt is straight. And although the ball moves, you're not causing it to move because you don't have enough loft on your putter and you don't have enough speed hitting the ball. So that's another key thing, is to work on putting. What is your definition of hitting it straight, So that's another thing I'll do in my routine warming up, is either put a chalk line or a string line down and just practice putting straight, and then use that, incorporate it into aim point, and get a bit of calibration as to the green speed. And I use the express method with the fingers. You'll see that online in instructional videos, and it's all just about sort of eliminating those mistakes and calibrating to the speed of the green.
Absolutely. So you start to head to the first tee, and I remember you saying something of that kind of stuck with me, is of seizing the moment. I was wondering what your sort of what kind of mental state you're trying to get yourself into on that first tee of a competition, and what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, you've sort of, obviously, club golfers are going to have the same pressures we do. The prize is different. Their club championship or, interclub or pennant can be the equivalent of us playing, in a tournament or for a major. But there's going to be times when you're feeling the pressure and things, and you're going to be nervous. But I always sort of, think back and strip it right back and think, well, why do I play this game? Because I love it. And if I'm nervous, I see that as a good thing, because it means I care about, the outcome. But I guess you can sort of go one of two ways, can't you? You can shy away from it, or you can really embrace it and drink it up, so to speak. So I try and see any sort of nerves or pressure as like a thing to really digest and make it fire you up and take it with you on the course. And it's basically can be whittled down to seizing the moment, really.
Are those, I know you work with a psychologist called David Galbraith, who's written a book, Unleashing Greatness?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I was wondering if you could touch base on a couple of things that you've worked with him over the course of the years.
I was fortunate enough to meet David. He first came to our interclub team, our local interclub team, and voiced his opinion to help us. And then he sort of realised he didn't know enough about the game and went back. And 3 years later, he came back to our regional provincial team and and voiced his opinion to help and was like an expert. And I was like, wow, that's really impressive. He's gone away, withdrawn himself from the situation and said, no, I need to learn more, and come back. And it was an absolute, library on golf and stories and people. And so from then I started to work with him, and he taught me a lot about life in general, and sort of going back to what I was saying earlier about having two choices. You can either, shy away from it, or you can tackle it head on. And he really explained that whole thing really well. And basically, his whole philosophy is about courage, and that comes down to, ideally, you need courage when you want to live outside your comfort zone, and being uncomfortable is the greatest way to develop and learn. So those sort of aspects I hold really close to my heart, and always try and seek the uncomfortable. And that's one thing I'd really suggest to the golfers out there, is to, if there's holes that they don't like, and or shots they don't like hitting, is to really throw themselves in the deep end. And you're going to sink more times than you swim to start with, but by the end you'll be swimming, and you'll wonder why you even bothered worrying about a hole that you don't like the shape or the look of. So he really taught me some real basic stuff, but in his book, it's really like a Bible to me, and he basically reverts back to that. You can be courageous or you can be a coward, and that doing the right thing, that's basically what it boils down to. So,
and is that, given the situation of a certain shot or a moment, is there like a little step-by-step process of which someone can sort of go through to sort of think and sort of live up to that, rather than sort of shy away and just almost get the shot over and done with?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and this is something I've worked on with him. And we're all going to have good and bad thoughts at different times, and think about, chipping in, or think about holing a shot, and we're also going to think about it, don't hit it into the water, or don't hit it out of bounds. But that's just the human brain, and when we're playing well, we have less of those thoughts, and when we're really struggling, we have more. So he really taught me how to really embrace those thoughts and almost stare them in the face. And one thing I do is I smile before I hit any shot, because that really, despite sometimes having poor thoughts, it finishes my routine in a positive fashion, and it's kind of disconnecting body and mind, and it just lets me play the shot. And his sort of take on things was to laugh at those fears, So that comes back to having courage to do that, and it's the same for all people. It's just that the amateur golfer tends to think about that stuff just about on every shot, whereas the professional golfer might think about it once or twice during a whole day. So your attitude and how you think on course has a hell of an impact on how you play.
Is there anything, if everything's going tits up, is there anything you sort of use as like a reminder to reinforce, actually start playing, executing on a routine? Or
ideally, I will always keep routine regardless of my score, and through David, I've learned the power of the process, and really falling in love with the process, because at the end of the day, we can't control the outcome. If we had a great shot and it lands up the face of a bunker, or it hits on the other side and shoots over the back of the green, we can't control that. So,
and the process for you is,
well, it's just the whole aspect of routine and selecting the club, and really that's all I'm doing on the course. I can't control the ball once it's left the face of the club. So there's
that routine of selecting the club. I just want to pick up on that, because that was something again that really struck a chord with me in terms of your process on that. I just wonder if you could talk us through, how you start with, is it the lie, then the wind? And
I mean, so obviously players have a favourite shot and they like to, let's say, for instance, they like to hit a draw, but there's going to be times where, there's a flag on the right, so is hitting a draw the smart thing to do? Or if you have a lie that's well below your feet, it's damn hard to hit a draw when the
but most
ball...
amateurs would just see the draw, right?
Yeah, and I guess you've got to adapt to your surroundings and conditions. And first of all, I'll see what the lie is, because that's the beginning of the shot. So straight away, if you don't get that adaptation to the lie, then you're going to have trouble. And then secondly, it's the wind. What's the wind doing? And hopefully it's sort of helping you with the lie. And then thirdly, it's where's the flag and where's the trouble, or where's the good place to hit it. Often the opposite. Amateurs will think about where the trouble is. Pros will think where the good spot to hit it is. So,
are you always trying to work it? Are you working it into the good areas, or you, like, say if the pin's back right and there may be a good area to the left of it with a ball below your feet?
Yep.
Is that sort of crying out for a fade shot, and you're just trying to land it in the middle of the green and work it towards the flag, or? More
or less. I mean, that's a good outcome, because obviously if it's a right flag, ideally you want to hit a fade, because if you hit one straight, you're still on the green or on the left edge, and that's generally a much easier shot from 30 feet across the green than it is if you bail out right. So you want to basically, if you're in a bird's eye, always looking to shape the ball back towards the target. No one likes the look of a ball going away from the target, and everyone likes the look of a shot that's getting closer and closer in the air as it comes down. So I'm always trying to work the ball from the safe side of the green back towards the flag, and therefore if you don't quite get it right, you're still on the green.
What happens when the lie contradicts that shot shape?
Well, that's one of those moments where people might get uncomfortable, and you've going back a few steps, you've got to think, oh, this is brilliant. This is an opportunity here where I can test myself, test my skills, test my routine. And, you might have the lie, the flag, and the wind all doing complete opposite to what you want. But you're going to have those days where you get those lies. So you've just got to stick to your process of checking off the lie and then seeing what the wind does and where the flag is. And let's say, for instance, that back right flag, it's a hanging line, the ball's above your feet, then the wind's off the left. So all of them are going against what you want to do. But basically you stick with the lie, that's going to produce a draw shot. The wind is going to hold that draw shot up. So you're basically trying to hit a draw to the middle of the green. And then if the wind's too strong or doesn't quite draw enough, then you're still going to be safe. And if it overdraws, you'll still be safe. So it's more or less trying to eliminate the big mistake and the big miss of sort of going against the lie or against the wind. And sometimes you're forced to go against the wind, but that's when creativity and things like that really take over, and you have to exaggerate things a lot, but that's just the way it is.
And you're still continuing working with David as ongoing practice, like working on your swing constantly?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff with David's become more off course, and it's basically just checkups with him, and I'll keep a little journal of things, and I have a little set of what I call success rules. So I'm taking away the focus of outcome success and putting it into process success. So, if I go through a whole week and stick to all my processes, that to me is, perfect success, because I've achieved what I set out to do at the start of the week. Whereas if I, muck around or whatever and don't go through the whole process, that's not success, regardless of whether I win or whether I lose. So I'd rather perform from a point of successful process, if that makes sense, because over a number of years, and whether that's just playing, on a Sunday with friends, or whether that's in a big inter-club match, or whether that's a major, that's going to hold you in a much better place, being consistent to the process.
You do sort of interesting. Is it a moment of perfections, or where you may drop an entire box of chopsticks, or you drop a balls and you have to put them back in the holes? Or what was that exactly?
You've kind of touched on a couple of things I do there. I'll go to the first one, moments of perfection. So that's a little sort of moments during the day where, say for instance, I have a challenging shot or something I don't like the look of, and I've gone through my routine and drawn upon that courage, addressed the ball, smiled, and then executed the shot. That is a pure moment to me, and that's another measurement of success. So often you have those shots in golf where you think, oh, that just felt incredible, and if you'd planned it, it feels even better, So we've come up with a little thing where I write down in detail the shot and what I felt and how it went, and we hold on to that memory as a moment of perfection. And you might be called upon to hit a very similar shot in an even more pressured environment, and that 6 iron on the 13th to 5 foot, you've played that shot before, so you can call upon it again. So it's like a little memory bank, so to speak, of those moments. That also helps to focus you on what you need to do, and gives you that confidence and belief that you can do it when you need to, or you're called upon to do it. So that's the first of those things. And then the second is sort of a resilience, patience drill I use. I'll find something that's very laborious and requires a lot of patience, and I'll basically go to work on completing the task. So one thing could be to tip, the whole packet of toothpicks onto the coffee table, pick them up one by one and put them back in, and maybe you've got a few words you say before your routine on the course, and you might say those words before each matchstick goes in. So you're building that process and patience at the same time, because it's identical to what you need on the course under pressure. So that those moments can be in airports, or they can be with family and a jigsaw, or they can be painting a picket fence one picket at a time. And people might think it's mad, but you're actually training your mind like you would.
No, absolutely.
Train your body in a gym. So
I could just imagine tipping over a bunch of toothpicks and just losing my plot and putting them back in there. And that's precisely it, though, isn't it? That's almost like I remember when I first did meditation 2 years ago. I did Headspace as well, and my mind was so busy. I just couldn't quiet it at all. It wouldn't shut up, and you start to erode that. But that's a great analogy, the toothpick one. I could just imagine just losing it on these toothpicks.
Yeah, and what you're doing there is it's basically mind gym. So you're exercising your mind and just building resilience and patience. And at the end of the day, it's like an hour in the gym. Whether the task takes 5 minutes picking the toothpicks up, or whether it takes, it might take a month if you're going to paint your fence. It's all the same principle of sticking to that routine and living the process. And obviously at the same time, you get the benefit of having a painted fence at the end of it. So
Right, yeah.
if you can find something that is beneficial, I do at my course where I practice, I'll go to the chipping green and I've got to fix every pitch mark before I can practice, because that gives me a better environment to practice in, and it also trains my mind. So I've grown to really enjoy those mind gym exercises and workouts, so to speak.
How often would you do that? A week or monthly? Or
I do it every day. So
you do it every day?
Yep. And it could be like David, my psychologist, he does it with the dishes every night. So he'll let everyone in his house, his 2 daughters, his wife, make as much mess all through the day, and he'll say, leave all the dishes for me. And at night he comes in, turns on the hot water, fills the sink, and goes to work on those dishes, and he can only do one at a time. Wash it, dry it, put it away.
Yeah. I'm just getting this picture of just looking at the kitchen and just losing the plot. It's the difference, isn't it? The analogy.
Exactly, yeah. And it's exactly the same on the course. I mean, guys that are hothead, so to speak, on the course would have the exact same reaction doing the dishes, you know?
No, absolutely.
So it's something I've grown to love, and I really find interesting and fascinating doing. And yeah, I've done it ever since, and it's given me a hell of a lot of patience. I'll tell you that much. It's great.
What was your one today?
I'm actually doing a jigsaw at the moment, so
it's brilliant.
I've been spending half an hour, and I'm just doing one piece at a time. So
and there's no given time on these. You would creatively come up with one for the day, or you see an opportunity and.
Yep, absolutely. I do on the street where I live. There's a supermarket nearby, and there's always trolleys left on the street. So anytime I see a trolley, I'll stop the car and walk out to the trolley, pick it up, wheel it over to the supermarket, put it in the aisle in the trolley park, and then walk back to my car. And that's a real cool one, because obviously it feels good that I'm doing something positive, and it's helping me on the course, even though it's nowhere near the golf course, you know.
No, I love it. It's brilliant. I know you work with a couple of other gentlemen as well who have helped you. Ryan Lamsden, the biomechanics guy.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if you could touch base on the sort of things you work on with him.
Absolutely. So I met Ryan about 6 or 7 years ago through a chap called Ramsey McMaster, was a physio for Golf Australia, and got to work with them for a number of years. And biomechanics is basically seeing what your body's like and then fine-tuning it to best perform for you. So that comes down to alignment at setup, and then more so sequence of movement through the swing. So Ryan's really good in terms of he will just focus on you. He doesn't have a model for a swing, like a perfect model. It's a physiology-based thing that's built around your restrictions and movement patterns and things. And obviously that relates to physio and strength and conditioning trainers, where they can improve certain areas. So I'll have sessions on the 3D system quite regularly, and to the point where actually my coach now is invested in his own system through a guy in the UK, Mark Bull. So just prior to last week, I had 3-4 days with Mark, working on my sequence, getting to know the new system, and now my coach will have one to use. So all the players will use it, and it's just sort of one of those things, another 1% thing, and it's something that the naked eye can't see either. So
yeah, Mark Ball, his name keeps coming up actually. I know a few people have gone and worked with him, so may have to reach out to Mark.
Yeah, he's an incredible guy, Mark. He's a doctor of the body, basically, is my understanding, and he's an incredible and simple way of talking and discussing the movement of the body and how it works around the golf club and things like that. So I really valued my time with him recently, and I'll see him again in a couple of weeks in London. So he works with a number of top players, but he also works with a number of amateurs, and he sees people for them as a movement side of it. He doesn't care if they've got 10 majors in the cupboard or they've never broken 90, So that's a cool thing about Mark. He treats everyone as a person and looks at it from a movement side of things.
Just as a caddy, it was just to have a player who can get it out there. It's quite interesting, actually. It's just it's a confidence point on the caddy's perspective of being with someone who can hit it like long, and certainly longer than most of the players out there. And you were probably very efficient in how much you get out of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm 6 foot and 86 kilos, but there's certainly a lot of guys now that are very athletic and very strong looking golfers. But I guess more strong looking athletes rather than strong golfers. I think there's a big difference in the two. A strong golfer is someone that is very efficient and, as you said, gets the most out of their body and what they're given, and is really diligent in their, warm up, warm down routines, gym work. Whereas, physically fit athlete is more someone that's just going to the gym without a real purpose and just pumping weights. And everyone's different. I mean, you can't do much with what you've given, really. You can only fine-tune it. So you see golfers that don't look big in stature but are very efficient and get the ball a long way out there. So that can be developed and worked on through the likes of biomechanics and physios and strength and conditioning trainers.
Yeah, I remember when I was at college in the States, talk about getting enough out of your body. I was doing the polar opposite, and I was working out all the wrong muscles and getting shorter and shorter and shorter, to the point where I was hitting it like when I was about 12 years old. I mean, there was just there was just nothing. I remember there was the first hole at our country club was par 4. We used to play there for qualifying. It was something like 440. When I first got there, I would hit something like a driver 6 iron or 5 iron, and then by the time in my third year, I was hitting driver wedge. I mean, it was ludicrous. But as you said, it's you're working on something to something else, and
that's right.
Yeah,
and that goes back to that whole process thing as well. And you can see the guys that do it well because they never get injured, basically, and they hit the ball a long way. Like you've obviously got sort of some limitations with your physiology, but everyone swings it differently, and it whittles down to being the best version of yourself. And if you can do that and be injury free, then even better. I mean, you take a look at a guy like Adam Scott. I mean, his posture at address is near perfect, and he's a very flexible guy, and he's very diligent with his stretching and yoga and osteopath and things like that. And then even the other day, there was, I think it was one of the holes at Augusta that he knocked it over the back of the green. And
I saw that. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and here's like other guys that are bigger and stronger than him, but they're getting 40, 50 yards out. And, how you think, how can that be? But he's a perfect example, basically, of being extremely efficient.
I don't think anyone's ever done that before. I mean, he was through the back of the green. No, it's interesting. I want to be respectful of your time, Matt. So there's just touch on a couple of things before I let you.
Not a problem.
Do you do any like sort of golf data or?
I've used a program called Shots to Hole. I'm fortunate enough to work closely with the guy who developed it in Melbourne, and that's a great website to track your stats. It takes 15, 20 minutes sometimes to input all the data after a round, but the benefit you get out of it in terms of fine-tuning your practice regimes and things like that, and course tactics, and is enormous. And obviously that's something a club golfer has to weigh up. But even if you start by taking note of missed fairways or missed greens or how many putts. I was speaking to Eduardo Molinari last year, and he's done all his own stats since he was 13. So he knows his game inside and out, and he knows where to hit the go button and where to pull off, and just accept that he might not be able to drive the green or might not be able to carry the water, and he'll take the percentage play. So stats are a huge part of the modern day game. And you look at, I saw Sergio's stats from the Masters, and he was, top 5 in a lot of stuff, and it's no wonder that, he's come out on top. And the same with Justin Rose. I mean, finished on the same score, but they're hitting it a long way, and they're hitting, I think Sergio is leading fairways for the week, so pretty good for a guy that averages over 300 yards to be number 1 in fairways.
What specific things are you looking out for on the golf data, and what would you implement on that in terms of practice?
There's sort of a few things that you can, yardage sticks or measuring poles, I guess, in terms of a big one is putts per green in regulation. So you can go in great detail in this, and as far as, researching a guy called Mark Brody, who's done all the stats on the PGA Tour and written numerous books, but basically driving distance, putts per green in regulation. You can keep an eye on scoring average, but the program I use, you can go as much detail as, a yardage measurement, the lie, particular course, wind direction. You can do all sorts. So that side of it will come into play more in like a course mapping. If you're going back to the same course, you had a really good week, you might be able to highlight a few areas which you can eliminate. It might mean laying up in a couple of holes more. It might mean going for a couple of holes more, So it's again more about those 1%ers, and it paints a bigger picture of a complete golfer, basically.
Absolutely. How do you set your goals for the year?
That's an interesting one. Like I have, I guess, like a ladder system, basically, which I want to be climbing up throughout the year. So I'll have certain things in place, and then obviously there's the end product, which is where I see myself going, and the end dream, and it's all aligned to that, basically. So I'll set myself goals more based on my processes, and I know that that's 99% of the journey. So if I can get that 99% as best as possible, then that 1%, which is the trophy at the end, or the winning, the score, the outcome, then that'll take care of itself. So all my goals are process related, which is a lot more different to other players generally. But it sort of hones me in on what I need to be doing. Basically, it keeps me reminded on that process. So,
and the end goal is
my ultimate dream is to win all 4 majors in a calendar year. So that's what I'm working towards.
Absolutely. And it's crazy to think that that like the ultimate goal, and it all comes back to sort of doing the divots before you practice, right?
And
how that all relates.
Absolutely, and it's seeking enjoyment out of those moments. And I've if you had told me that 5 years ago, I would have said, "Oh, Chris, you're dreaming. Like, I'm not. That's the greenkeeper's job." Right. But you see it in the top guys. Like, you'll often see Novak Djokovic holding an umbrella for a ball boy, or something that just shows they're human, and he's doing that for other reasons other than just being nice and polite. But it sort of adds to your whole picture as a golfer, really.
I was going to say, if there's any, because I know you know quite a few of the major tour players, is there anything, these similar characteristics of what you notice in them?
I enjoy playing with, obviously, guys that have been out on tour a little bit longer and had success, and just picking up on their little routines and nuances, and sort of also being a bit of a sponge around them and soak up as much info as possible. The caddies are a good one to talk to, but I kind of just try and soak everything up. There's not really anything that's standing out to me at the moment about any particular player. It's more every player has strengths, and then it's seeing what they are and seeing if that uncovers anything in my game. But the important thing is to be the best version of yourself, basically, because you might not hit it as far as other guys, but you can work on adding distance, or you might be a very good putter. So you just keep working at your strengths and try and let that lift your weaknesses up with it. So
I guess that's the only thing you control at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah. If you're playing with a guy that hits at 350, and you're not going to outdrive him, so don't even bother. Just beat him around the greens, or beat him in strategy, and let your strengths win at the end of the day. So, and that's a big thing with amateurs as well. They get upset if someone's hitting it further, or for whatever. These things happen, but you can't control what they're doing. You just got to get stuck in and do it yourself.
Okay, well, I'll do some quick rapid fire questions.
Yeah, cool.
To wrap up, how do you structure your time when you're at home, say in New Zealand, and it's like a practice day midweek?
I'll have a schedule that I keep, and basically it's a combination of what my coach is doing on those days, try and get the most out of him, what the course setup's like. So if it's a club day, obviously the course is going to be in better condition, so it's a better time to practice. Then I'll work around all these little things that favour me, rather than I'm not going to leave for practice at 5 to 8 because I'm going to sit in traffic for half an hour. So I'll get out there early and have the best of the conditions. Or my structure's very sort of reflective of the environment, and I keep a journal of everything I do, so that I can sort of look back and see if there's things I'm missing or things I'm doing too much of. And then it's more about having that awareness the whole time. So my structure's probably a little different to some guys that just turn up at 8 a.m. and leave at 5 p.m. and go, oh yeah, I've done my 8 hours. Time to head home. So if I wake up early, I'll make the most of it and get out early. If I'm got home and have got jet lag or anything, I'll do other things. So it's very sort of reflective of my environment.
What is the best $100 someone can spend money on?
That's a really good question. I mean, I'd say firstly you could look at David's book, and
which is
the
Unleashing the Greatness.
Unleashing Greatness. So if you Google search David Galbraith,
I'll put it in the show notes so everyone can find it.
Yep, wonderful. I mean, have a look at his work, and I think you get the most knowledge out of books. And second to that, speaking to people who have had the experience. So if you can use that $100 to either say get yourself along to a clinic and get a couple of little, golden tips off a player, or whether you can use that $100 to play in a pro with a pro, that's another great option.
That's a great idea.
Because spending $100 and getting one lesson is basically, you might as well just throw it down the drain, because you need to get on a routine of seeing that coach all the time. So I'd spend my $100 to develop myself before I'd even got onto the course, so to speak.
I say you can't give David's book, because we've mentioned that. What is another or highly recommended book or most gifted book? I know you're a big reader.
The one that really got me going was called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and that really came across as a real defining book for me, and talked a lot about resistance and why the human brain takes the easy path, basically, and that I found exceptional. He was actually the guy that wrote the movie The Legend of Bhagavan, so it's got an uncanny golf related theme. So the War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll have to look that one up. I've heard of it, but I didn't realise that was joined to Bag in Advance. Interesting. Favourite quote or motto you may live by?
For me, it just basically comes down to courage and choosing the hard path and the rocky mountain as opposed to taking the lift, because it's the twists and turns and the struggles up that mountain that you'll look back on and really enjoy, and even enjoy it when you're doing it. So that to me is the very essence of it all. Choosing the hard path and using courage to do so.
Fantastic. Okay, time for your action challenge. And at the end of each week, we offer our guests to give an action challenge for the listeners to try something like a drill exercise or reading, which is something you believe in, for them to sort of try and implement and make their game better at home.
Yep.
You can fire away.
All right. Well, my one is about fear. So every golfer will have fear, and it might come up on the 13th hole, it might come up on the first, who knows. But my challenge to you out there listening is to go and face your fears and get uncomfortable. And it could be asking a girl out that you like, or it could be applying for a dream job. But I challenge you to really get yourself out of your comfort zone and use courage to push through your fear. And once you're on the other side, you'll realize that, hey, it wasn't such a big deal. And you might get rejected, you might not. But the thing is that you're one step closer to being successful and getting the answer you're after, whether that takes 5 attempts at a tee shot or whether it takes 30 attempts. By the time you've nailed one down that 13th hole, you've got rid of your fear and you know that you can do it. So that's my tip, to get into the uncomfortable.
I love it. Brilliant. Matt, this has been an absolute pleasure. Finally, to wrap up, where can people follow your progress? Are you online? Any social accounts, websites?
Yep. So this year I'll be playing the Challenge Tour in Europe, and I have a Twitter handle, Matt Perry Golf, Matt with 1 T, and then I have a website, mathewperry.com. So Twitter's an easier form to update as tournaments progress, and then I do sort of a bi-monthly update with a bit more detail of what's going on, how I've progressed, and my best memories from each tournament. So that's the best way you can keep in touch and follow my progress.
Wonderful. Well, I'll be following, and this really has been fantastic. I think there's so much wealth of knowledge and gems have come out of this. It really has. And I know you're going to go on and pursue your dreams this year, and it's wish you nothing but the best. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking, and I've enjoyed reliving some great moments and some, as you say, some gems.
Absolutely, absolutely. And please do feel free. I know you may be coming in London in a couple of weeks, so feel free to hit me up. You're more than welcome to stay, and we'll maybe play some golf.
Excellent.
Play some G.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be there at the start of the month, so I'll be in touch for sure.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Matt. This has been fantastic, and once again, wish you the very best.
Awesome.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, Chris. Be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again for listening to Making a Club Champion podcast. If you love the show, don't forget to leave a review. If you want to take immediate action on what you just learned, head over to www.makingaclubchampion.com, where you'll receive your own personal action challenges from the latest guests, all of the show notes, strategic philosophies, and much, much more. If you want even more from the show, head over to Instagram at Making a Club Champion, where you'll receive lots of golden nuggets and gems and goodies. Until next time, thanks for listening.